When the river was still the main pathway of life, there stood a small house on the banks of the Wening River. Morning arrived slowly. A thin veil of mist still hovered above the water, and among the bamboo the narrow footpath and a single hanjuang tree growing along the riverbank. An old story was still waiting to be remembered. In the valleys of Sunda, when rivers were still the lifeblood of the land, there stood a small village, surrounded by terraced rice fields, morning mist, and forests that forever guarded their secrets. Its people believed there is a kind of love that never truly ends. It only loses its way home. In that village lived a young man named Rangga. He was the son of a humble homemaker. His life was simple. He owned no vast rice fields, no water buffalo, no wealth beyond the strength of his own two hands. Meanwhile, at the far end of the village lived a young woman named Sekar Wangi. She was the daughter of a family of herbal healers, known throughout the village for their kindness. They grew up together. They bathed in the same river. They chased dragonflies along the same rice field dikes. And quietly, they fell in love. But in those days, a man was not considered worthy of bringing a woman home until he owned a piece of land. For the people believed that land was the truest sign that a man could provide a life for his family. So Rangga made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. I will leave to seek my fortune. I will return with a piece of land, so you will no longer have to wait. In your parents' home, before they parted, they planted a hanjuang tree on the bank of the Wening River. And they made a promise. As long as that tree lived, their love would never die. But there was something Rangga never knew. Since childhood, Sekar had carried an illness that slowly consumed her body. No village healer had ever been able to cure it. Only two people knew the truth: her mother and father. And they chose to keep it hidden, for they did not want to burden Rangga's heart while he was chasing his future. Year after year passed. Rangga worked in distant harbors, cutting bamboo, carrying sacks of salt, splitting timber, sleeping in humble huts, enduring hunger. Every coin he earned, he carefully saved. Not for himself, but to buy a piece of land. The land where one day he would build a small home. A home he had already named Sekar's house. Meanwhile, Sekar's illness grew worse with each passing day. Her body became weaker. Her breath grew shorter. Her parents realized their daughter might not have much time left. In those days, a man lived in a neighboring village, one who had learned the art of healing from village elders and wandering healers. He was no nobleman, yet his knowledge gave many people hope. Sekar's parents went to him with a plea, not only in the hope that their daughter might recover, but that her life would not come to an end in solitude. They had only one final wish: to see their daughter become a wife. And, if God so willed, to hold a grandchild before they closed their eyes forever. Sekar wept. Not because she had stopped loving Rangga, but because she knew she might never live to see him return. In the end, to fulfill her parents' final wish, she accepted the marriage. A few years later, a baby girl was born. But not long after, Sekar drew her last breath. Before she passed away, she left only one message. If one day a man comes looking for me, don't tell him that I left him. Just tell him that I went home first. Many years later, Rangga finally returned. He came home carrying the deed to a piece of land, a few pieces of gold, and the dream he had held close to his heart for so many years. But the village had changed. Sekar's house stood empty. The hanjuang tree was still standing, but the one he had longed to see had been gone for many years. There were no tears, no cries. Rangga simply sat beneath the hanjuang tree until the sun disappeared beyond the horizon. That night, he slowly unfolded the worn cloth bundle throughout all his years of wandering he had carried with him. Inside lay a pair of bamboo bracelets, the very ones he had long dreamed of giving to Sekar when their little home was finally complete. He held them tightly. Then, in a whisper, he said, "Forgive me. I took too long to come home. The next morning, Rangga began to build the house alone. No one could understand why he would build a home for someone who had been gone for so many years. But whenever anyone asked, he would simply smile. A promise is still a promise. Day after day passed. One beam after another was raised into place. One pillar after another stood firm. At last, the roof was set. And finally, Sekar's little house was complete. Day after day passed much like the one before. And then, on the seventh day, the little house was finally complete. The home that was meant to mark the beginning of their life together was now accompanied only by the whisper of the wind, the rustling of bamboo, and the gentle flow of the Wening River. That night, a gentle rain began to fall. Mist filled the valley. The Wening River flowed more quietly than ever before. Rangga chose to sleep on the floor of the little house, which did not yet even have a hearth. Outside, there were no crickets singing, no dogs barking. It was as though the entire village was holding its breath. Then, in the middle of the night, Rangga dreamed. In his dream, he heard the wooden door slowly creak open, not by the wind, but by someone he knew better than anyone. When he turned, Sekar was standing in the doorway. She wore a simple white kabaya. Her face was exactly as he remembered. Only her smile had become gentler and more peaceful. Rangga stood speechless. His lips trembled. Why did you make me wait so long? Sekar smiled softly. Then she whispered, I never stopped waiting. Tears rolled down Rangga's face. Then, why did you leave? The young woman turned her gaze toward the river, as though every answer flowed within the river itself. It wasn't I who left. I was simply called home first. Rangga lowered his head. I built this house for you. Sekar gently ran her hand along the wooden wall, as though she could truly feel it. I know. I have always been watching over you. Rangga lifted his gaze. Then stay here with me. Sekar slowly shook her head. My time is no longer mine to keep. But this house, do not let it stand empty. One day, weary souls who have lost their way will come here. Let them rest. Let them find their way home, even if only for a single night. Because a home is not always built to be owned. Sometimes a home is created so that others will not feel alone. Rangga wept. Do you still love me? Sekar smiled. Her eyes were as warm as the sun after the rain. Look at the Wening River. Does a river stop flowing because it has lost a single drop of water? Rangga shook his head. Love is the same. It never stops. It simply becomes a prayer. The mist slowly embraced Sekar's form. Before she faded away, she spoke her final words. If one day you long for me, do not look for me among the graves. Find me in the sound of flowing water, in the morning dew, in the wind that passes through this house. I will always find my way home. A moment later, Rangga awoke. The house was silent, and yet, upon the wooden floor, which had been empty the night before, lay a single sprig of hanjuang flowers, still glistening with the dew of the night. Even though not a single hanjuang tree grew anywhere around the house, dawn arrived. The dew disappeared. Life quietly returned to its familiar rhythm. But something had changed. Deep within Rangga, no one ever knew why. For there are encounters meant to exist only within dreams. The villagers could never explain why, from that day on, every evening, a solitary man could always be seen sitting beneath the hanjuang tree He never wept. He never spoke. He simply watched. The waters of the Wening River as though waiting for someone who had taken too long to find their way home. Then things began to happen that no one could explain. The little house Rangga had built was never truly empty. Whoever spent a night there would always hear the gentle sound of a woman pounding herbs in the middle of the night. Sometimes they would also hear a mother softly singing an old Sundanese lullaby, her voice so gentle it seemed to drift with the wind. And yet, there was never anyone inside the house. The villagers believed what remained there was not a spirit, but a promise. A promise that never had the chance to live its life alongside time. For in Wening tirta, love born of true sincerity never truly disappears with death. It transforms into a prayer. It transforms into the wind, into the mist, into the voice of flowing water that never ceases, and it remains among the whispering bamboo, the morning mist, and the endless current of the river, waiting until someone, at last, remembers their story once more. And those who arrive at that little house, carrying a heart full of longing, almost always leave with the same quiet confession that they heard the gentle whisper of a woman's voice. Please, have a good rest. Your journey is still a long one.